Well, hello, hello. I am coming to you at a very weird time today because my family are out and it's been a jam-packed, beautiful day and week filled with incredible results with dogs with cancer and not so good diagnoses. Hi, Zara. Happy Friday to you. And all sorts of things that are shape-shifting in miraculous ways. And I, based on what change really happened today and people looking for visible proof, it reminded me of a time when I remember being a little girl and feeling really confused at the fact that people couldn't receive me, that I was too psychic, too loud, too noisy, shouldn't know things that little girls shouldn't know about, and feeling quite helpless and voiceless. And my house and my family were filled with a lot of chaos. I have three sisters, and it was a strange time. My father was an abusive, ugly drunk, and the way that I coped was to stay silent, to stay out of his way, and compensate for feeling the pain that my mother was going through with his betrayals and infidelity and everything else, and also just trying to fit in. So I did. I overcompensated. I became a champion swimmer and a perfect student and the good girl in my family dynamic. That was the one that kind of brought a lot of laughter and humor, which can be a great healer, to diffuse incredible tension. But I realized, and up until when I had my big breakdown or breakthrough, as I prefer to call it, I'm sorry, I've got a lot of grief moving through me always off of my chest. And I remember that from being a child too. Hi, Reza, Nola. Good to see you here. And I'm just talking about something that sparked through conversations and sessions today that I had. I've had fearful, aggressive dogs that are very fear aggressive come into my practice today, and working with the trust process, and then working with incredibly brave women all over the world that are ready to heal these old wounds and change the old stories. And as I said, if you're just joining us now, hi Linda, that I remember, resonating with the stories that my clients come to me with, and whether they're animal or human, that there's a resonance there. Good to see you. And I'll never forget, sort of sitting in those days of innocence where I knew something was off. I was probably in my late 20s, 30s, and my life was really, really good. But going for therapy and not really understanding the dynamics of neuroplasticity or nervous system work that I do now, or how to work with trauma, and thinking that first of all, it was all a waste of time, because I was tired of just sitting talking about stuff and not feeling any different, but visualizing a certain traumatic event from my childhood where I felt frozen in fear and suffocation. And to this day, I can't wear anything around my neck because I feel like I'm being choked to death. And then getting into Akashic records and past lifetimes and other traumatic experiences in this lifetime where I was literally fighting for my life because someone was trying to choke the life out of me, or being hung, which apparently, and it rings true for me, that the tumor that I had at one point, which is now gone through the work that I do with Parama and epigenetics and this amazing work with the nervous system, that tumor had created itself in my head because I had been hung and persecuted most of the time by women that I trusted. So trust has become my sort of signature program, because it's something that I'm still learning and processing through. But just remembering that one specific timeline when my client was speaking to me today about trauma that she'd had in a very similar parallel lifetime with her alcoholic, abusive, drunk father, that as much as I do this in my own way, that this particular facilitator that I'd gone to see had asked me to go back into that timeline and allow my child part, so that little girl that was frozen in fear for her life, to do for herself what she couldn't do then. Because when you're in that fight, flight, freeze response, all you're doing is trying to keep yourself safe and keep your body alive. So instead of being stuck inside, I went out into the cul-de-sac, and my therapist at the time asked me, if I were any animal, what would I be? And suddenly I was a cheater, and she asked me if I wanted to run. And this is the work of Peter Levine and somatic experiencing, which is so fantastic. And I highly recommend that. Hi, Diana. If you haven't read his book, Awaking the Tiger, it gives you a really in-depth understanding of how the nervous system actually works. And if you're frozen or shut down and you couldn't fight or you couldn't flee, how you can do that completion process or that synchronization process to complete that on a body-based way. So often we try and figure and problem solve from the prefrontal cortex, from the mind. And this work is really transformational. It changes lives, because we're working on identifying the area in the body at the age that it created the belief that this was the way that life is and that there's nothing that you can change, and then listening to what that child part needs so that she can change the story. Or what I talk about in the trust process is realization learning. And it's amazing, because you get to complete that on a body sensate experience, a somatic experience. It's very kinesthetic, where you actually, for example, say that you were sexually abused as a child and pinned down and you couldn't run, but you can recall that the smell of rotting leaves that you were perhaps pinned down on at the time of that trauma is the thing or the trigger that shuts you down again, because it's just too much. The nervous system is flooded. And when you can create or have somebody hold a safe space for you to be able to complete the process or the outcome that you fought back or you ran away, then you actually get to function from the present moment, not the Pico universe or the part of your brain or the child part, which I call it, because I don't believe in the inner child. I believe that there are parts and pieces of us, hi Diana and Kenton and Grant, that are trapped in the trauma. Hello Daisy, my dog is saying yes, it's okay, because she's also had some trauma in her life. But so yeah, that's what you call a pattern interrupt. But yes, so that you actually get to complete the process. And you see this in animals in the wild. For example, let's say that there's a polar bear and he's running and there's a helicopter, so it's not a noise that's natural to his environment, and he's trying to run away from this noise that he doesn't know. Yes, Daisy, this is real life. Hey, and you've come so far too. Such a sweet dog. So sorry, where was I? So yeah, so you see the animal running and then it's darted or tranquilized and it's running away. So it's in the process of that neurophysiology of running away from a threat that is very real. Then the anesthetic takes place and it's unconscious, and the people do whatever they are doing to it, taking measurements, putting a tracker on it, whatever it is. And as it comes out of the anesthetic, You see the animal heart rate changes. You see that in the breath, and then you actually see the animal complete the running away phase, which is why animals in the wild don't get ulcers, they don't get cancers, because they know how to neuromodulate. And this is what I see, and what I take my clients through in the mindfulness change process, which is an intensive 5-hour process that we normally split up into 2 pieces so that we don't flood the nervous system with too much information. But seeing, like I did, as myself as this beautiful, agile, very fast cheetah, and as an 8-year-old girl running down the street with speed and grace to safety. So getting to the end of her little street, turning right, running all the way up the hills. My legs are running with lightness and speed. The air's rushing through my hair. My heart is pounding. My lungs are pumping. And I was literally flying past houses and mailboxes at lightning speed. And when you reach the edge of the neighborhood, then my therapist asked, "What do you want to do now? What do you want to do now?" And I wanted to scream and howl like a wolf. So she encouraged me to do that, and I stood up and in her office, and I screamed and I howled like my little girl wanted me to. And after I was done, I sat back down in the chair, and my therapist asked me, "What does she need now?" As a secure adult, so the mother or the father energy, or the place of secure attachment that perhaps I didn't have when I needed it in that moment of terror, to be that for my 8-year-old. Knowing that she had to go back home to that chaotic frequency of an abusive drunk father and treading on eggshells and everything else. So bringing that energy of that experience, bringing in the medicine of wolf, or bringing in the medicine of cheetah that has the speed and the resilience to do short bursts and then rest, is moments, and I've had many moments of this, and so of my clients, that really shift your inner world. And I released one more layer of that victim story, or that learned helplessness or shutdown, like laying a horse down, right? Which to a horse's death, and why I love to work with horses in this arena of trauma resolution, because the feelings of helplessness diminish there. And this ability to reimagine traumatic events and shift your lived experiences through the power of visualization and vocalization is a very transformative tool, because you get to actually rewrite the story and not be stuck in these, what I call positional he-pads, where you've taken a position. I talked about this yesterday. You take a position based on the belief and the construct of the story that this is how the world is. And it gives you that place, again, what I teach in the trust process of realization learning, that you can wake up from a dream state like that, or a therapy session like that, where you complete the process of bringing yourself down into a space of fight flight response to arrest and digest response, where everything has to change because you know that you are the one that create your own safety. And what I love about this process of mindfulness change is it's exactly that. You emancipate yourself from a state of victimhood and allow yourself the opportunity to build new inner resources, right? This is where we talk about internal resourcing that, is a true. And what does the child part, because you're the adult, and this is where so many people get stuck, is that you think, but I'm grown up now. I thought I was over it. And most of my clients come and they think, yeah, I thought I worked through that. I've done decades of work on this. And yet I know that deep down on a supramental level, these experiences that haven't had a chance to complete are still running your life in some way, shape, or form. And it allows you this opportunity to really build new inner resources. Excuse me, to change your story. And they're powerful as in regards to how you want to create your life going forward as the author of your own story. And I'm wondering if you've ever done any work like this, and if so, how has it impacted your healing, and how has it impacted your relationships, and how you are responding to life and moving through life in a right relationship. And again, I'm just so grateful to my clients. You know who you are today, how powerful this process is. It blows me away every time I use it, because the power of having a guide on your healing journey is absolutely life-changing. And does it make sense that you can't do this for yourself? Because when you're in hypervigilance or you're in hyperarousal, you can't learn, you can't hold that space for yourself. You need somebody to say, you can be safe here, you can rest here, I've got you. And why I love working with animals, because they really get this. And they get it really, really fast. So carrying on, this is kind of part 2 of yesterday, was where I was talking about so many people saying they feel so scattered and overwhelmed and shut down or numbed out or hyper vigilant, because there's just so much coming at them all the time that they're feeling scattered and they're diluting and draining their energy. So I want to talk about the how today, because does it make sense that most of the inputs in your brain come from the inside your own body, from your heart, from your lungs, from your organs, from your fascia and your tissue? And ancient structures in your brainstem and your subcortex, such as the hypothalamus and the amygdala, begin the process of turning these signals into that fundamental feeling of what it's like to be alive in these insane, crazy times where there is no manual, there is no trusted resource other than your own internal resources to keep you not just alive, but thriving through the crazy. And then, of course, more recently evolved regions of your brain, and I talked about this yesterday, those insulas inside each of these crazy temporal lobes on the side of your head, refine these signals further into this embodied feeling of coherent, continuous presencing or being. And this primal sense of being a body is at the core of the stream of consciousness. And unless you're in extreme pain, which is when we actually leave the physical body and we become the witness of, as an infinite being, that we've been and had all and every experience out there, and you're looking as the observer at what your body is being inflicted to. So it's about tuning into and centering yourself like that. So how do you do it? Well, what if you just start? I always say inch by inch is a cinch, yard by yard is hard. So what if just now you take some time off? We can do active appreciation later, but this is part of that appreciation of knowing that your body's got you covered. There is an innate intelligence in your body mind that knows how to keep you in an optimal point of view. And it's this thing, all the judgment, all the pico universes, all the positions of handicapping and atrophying and paralyzing and atrophying and destroying you in order to keep this belief, thought, feeling, or emotion alive. So I want you to just check in right now and just follow that internal sensation. And I like to keep my hands sort of under my diaphragm here, of just a single breath. So in the in-breath, feeling your belly expand, the contraction of your chest, the coolness of inhaling compared to the heat of exhaling, and just noticing how this feels. And if you're listening to this on the replay, I encourage you to just stop this right now and then just try this for 10 breaths. And just counting them very softly in your mind, if you like. And you could also be particularly aware of breathing in the area of your heart or in the center of your divine line into the gravitas of the body a few inches below the navel, which is very much connected into this survival energy, this kidney energy of existential fear of survival, and the bladder energy of feeling the need to try and control everything. So you're spending so much of your energy projecting out too far in the future to look for all the exit strategies and all the ways that you can create trauma, drama, and emergency to get out of the what if scenarios, right? Worst case scenarios, rather than looking at what's right about this and how can I amplify this feeling of joy and expansion and bliss and flow in your life. So see if you can get a sense of your body and your mind as a whole, along with an attitude of allowance and acceptance and patience, where when you're in appreciation, judgment can't be there at the same time. It's impossible. So doing this will tend to activate neural networks on the sides of the brain that'll support the sense of being peaceful, present in the moment. So back to the 3 Ps that I teach in the trust process of patience, persistence, and presence, of being with what is and allowing yourself to feel it without defining it as right or wrong or good or bad or judging it or going into the past or into the future, rather than staying present with it. And when you do that, what you'll find is that it'll reduce the activation in the default network that's running down the middle and the top of your brain that makes you feel scattered, right? Because your mind is actually looking for evidence. It's the negativity bias as well. And it's where we start to take things too personally, or take life too personally, that everything is against you rather than looking at everything is for you. And you know this, if you're part of my tribe, that fear tends to scatter the mind into this sort of frantic hypervigilance, fleeing, fighting, or freezing. So as you tune into your body, I want you to just notice that you're okay right now. And you can say that. I often say this and I love it because it reminds me of another beautiful client of mine in New York who had this little boy called Zola. And we just had this incredible heart connection. And he used to tap. He couldn't have been more than just started to talk 2 or 3. And he used to just tap because he used to come to me for body talk. And he used to say, "It's okay. I'm okay. It's okay. I'm okay." And I love that. And every time I kind of remind myself that I'm okay, that it's not real, it's a rational fear that's showing up. It's my ego and my mind wanting to keep me safe, and they're doing the best they can with the resources that they have. And I just remember Zola, and I remember, it's okay. It's okay. We're okay. Now and now and now and now. And it's the heart of you. And I love the Lord of the Rings, and to borrow a metaphor from that, it says, no matter how thick and dark the clouds are, the stars are always shining. So even if you can't see the sun or you can't see the stars, it doesn't mean that they're not there, filling this empty space or these chaotic nodes of light. So it's also a great practice to just tune in into the best possible outcome, the highest, greatest intention, the goodness, all together at the core of you. And know your own benevolence, your own compassion and kindness, that you are sovereign to yourself. That's it. And I'm looking forward to speaking about sovereignty and coming home and being deeply rooted in your truth with Sharon Blackie, because I'm just in love with her work. I love what she stands for. And short of jumping on a plane and going to remember my Irish roots and a world that I know and yet I haven't experienced in this lifetime, she's amazing. So look out for that, because I will be sharing Sharon Blackie and her beautiful wisdom with you, hopefully very soon. So just be aware of the desires that are darting out into the world, that are reaching for this and pushing away that, and feel what it's like to rest more into harmony, right? Remember, balance doesn't mean stagnation. It's not a flat line. We're not designed to flatline, which is where 99% of the world is. We're designed to experience the full intensity, the bliss, the pain, the agony, the ecstasy. It's part of what makes us human. And you can't separate the one without taking away the experience of the other. So when people say, I just want more balance in their life, I'm always kind of in that space of curiosity of saying, is it balance that you want, or is it more intensity in living your best life? Because when you're present with life, does it make sense that you're not disturbed by compulsive desires and choices that you're making out of fear? When you're open to a healthy disenchantment about the actual results of chasing this or going to war with that or struggling or battling or fighting against the anti-consciousness, that we really want to look at what's underneath that. You know, the opposite of consciousness is unconsciousness. The opposite of black is unblack. It's not white. And we've got a bit of corruption on those files based on our bad programming that I call the insane asylum that we're all committed to, and nobody knows it until you know it. So take some time this weekend on this sort of flush of this new moon energy that's saying, it's time to go deep. It's time to integrate. It's time to recalibrate and synchronize and complete, go through the completion process of some of these old stories that have kept you hostage and has you keep running on this Mobius strip of looking in upsetting situations or challenging relationships with impossible people. And you'll find lots of that on my SoundCloud account about how to set healthy boundaries with impossible people, for example, that you can find refuge, a kind of center in the answers to these questions. And remember, when we're asking generative questions, we're not looking for a conclusion, because when you make a conclusion of that, oh, it's this or it's that, and you place significance on what you think is the answer to whatever the a sign or issue or problem is that's going on in your life, then you can't widen your perspective and get a more expansive reality in how you want to move forward, because you've already concluded that that's as good as it gets, or that's what it is. So when you ask these questions, it's coming from a place of what else is possible. So what's really true here? What matters most? What the heck just happened is one that I ask at least 1 million times a day. What just happened here? But not from a place of making it significant, but from a place of integration, of what's out of my hands. What do I have no control over? The only thing you can control is how you respond to the world out of the power of choice. So what are the most important things to do? And more importantly, what is it that you are being in those moments when the voice of the child that never had a voice before and now does, because you are creating the safety of being the secure adult, of being the mother or the father energy that you never had? What needs to change? What do you need to let go of? So even when you're anxious or sad or irritated or feeling those old niggles of inadequacy or shame, or that you're not enough, or you're depressed, bubbling up, know that there's a deeper place, that this is undisturbed. And awareness just keeps working. So the peaceful space in which experience comes and goes, that deep down in your gut knowing, is an inviolate wisdom. It's a still small voice at the heart of you. It's always been there. You just couldn't hear it before. So remember that metaphor from the Lord of the Rings, that no matter how thick and dark the clouds, the stars are always shining, filling that empty space with light. And you are the vessel that holds the light. In Kabbalah, we talk about that, right? That the masculine in its space of being the highest form of what the masculine looks like, needs the feminine to hold the light. So how can you start to integrate the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the feminine, the masculine, into a space that just is better for you, better for the world, better for your environment? Because that's the one thing we all have in common, is wanting better. And don't forget, it is Friday, and Friday is a day. You know, the weekend is coming if you're working on a calendar month that you, or week that you work 5 days of the week somewhere else and you have 2 days off. Take some time this weekend to just celebrate your wins, celebrate just how far you've come, celebrate just how bold and brave and all-knowing you've always been. And now that you've moved all these obstacles and resistances out of the way, you get to know that the obstacle is the way through, right? That you have to feel in order to heal, and that you don't have to do it alone. We're all in this together, and I am excited and a little terrified at where we're all finding ourselves. But I also know the power of mindfulness change. I know the power of the trust process. And I know that even though you cannot change what has happened to you through traumatic situations, you can transform through it. So let's turn all that shit into fertilizer and start nurturing the ground that you walk upon, so that the seeds that you're planting for the next 90 days, this is our last 90-day stretch of the year. Set yourself up for success. Celebrate your small wins. Appreciate the things that you have in your life. And you'll start to see that you're a lot more wealthy and successful than you give yourself credit for, because you're no longer in this fixed position that success or wealth has to be one thing, right? You're multifaceted, you're omnipresent being in the world is what makes you you, and there's nobody else on the planet like you. So remember that people are not looking for someone like you, they're looking for someone that is you, because nobody has your unique talents and gifts or your experiences. And this is where we use the power of parable, the power of storytelling in a good way, so that you can live well and inspire others to do the same. So happy Friday, wherever you are, and trust that you're loved, trust that you're enough. And if you want to find out more about how to use the mindfulness change process, or you're interested in hosting or learning how to use the trust process, let me know. This only works when people choose to work with it. And I'd love to show you how. So that's it. I'm off. Enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you are, and tread gently on yourself. Take time out to just be quiet and still, and spend some time journeying and exploring those dark spaces that you are filling with the light of who you be. And I'll meet you there. All right. Lots of love. Bye.